This is your daily briefing and you are most welcome to it. Just kick off with the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. The club has acknowledged our request for a meeting and is currently considering whether it wants to accept the invitation. We'll update further next week. Absolute nut jobs, this lot. I think when my head is in the right space, and it certainly isn't this morning or this afternoon, wherever we are, I'll do an entire kind of clip on them, because I also don't think it's going to be for everybody. And this is take two, because I started talking about them and I just thought, who is listening to this and who in their right mind would want to listen to it? It's going to be for the hardcore of you out there. So they did nothing for years. Absolutely nothing. Just said, oh yes, thank you very much. Wandered around telling people that it was too commercially sensitive to share with information, to share with the plebs like you and me. And now they've eventually realised that they've been spun and they've gone back in heavy and they've just been laughed at. I'm sure Donna and Daniel are preparing their next move. There's a real mess behind this as well, about in respect of the government guidelines that could have, should have, recommendations and football governance, and it is a mess. But as I say, I need to look at it in greater detail. I gave it about half an hour this morning, but I don't think the cavalry is coming for these people. I think these clowns have gone in shouting there will be change, there will be this, that and the other, and it's not going to happen for them. The real problem, and I am cheating you now because I'm going into it a bit, but the real problem is not the Premier League. If you look at the clubs that are operating in very, very dicey fashion, they're all beneath the Premier League. And there's clubs operating at over 100% of their turnover, their operating monies, on playing for spending on players and on wages. Just absolute Wild West down there. So I think inflicting competition winners as board members of a football club, I just don't see it, folks. I just don't see it. Absolute guff here from the Daily Mail. Tottenham still want Maurizio Pochettino to return after missing out on him in the summer, and would sack under pressure Nuno, Espírito if PSG boss became available. I don't think Poch is that stupid. Like I say about all of these people, there's a low animal cunning to a lot of people involved in football, and Poch, he knows that if the PSG thing goes sour, which it may well not. I mean, it's gone sour for a lot of people, but that's the nature of the gig there, because it's all about winning. That's the metric. I mean, I don't follow the guy, but I would be amazed if the club have got an iota of time for him talking about building and philosophy and all that garbage. Here's a ton of money, get good players in, win stuff. That's the dialogue, that's the conversation, that's the narrative, that's what we do here. But for all his faults, I can't see him being stupid. This club's gone backwards since he left, and it's not going to happen. Further enlightenment in relation to Nuno's inability to give a press the little chit chat thing, our post-match conversation at our last game, and it turned out that it was the pitch side interview thing was abandoned because Arsenal fans were using the C word very loudly. So Sky Sports producers took a decision that, given the volume of the abuse, they could not risk such language being broadcast, which is fully understandable. And they gave Nuno permission to return down to the tunnel before coming back to complete his interview after supporters had been cleared from the stadium. Nuno's Arsenal debacle has now led to Premier League moving post-match interviews from pitch side from this weekend, and this is what I predicted after the game. However, this isn't going to appeal to everybody, because the rooms and the people allowed in those rooms when they're having that little chit-chat dialogue afterwards is going to be limited to whoever is broadcasting the game live, which is going to lead to the annoyance of other TV broadcasters and radio stations. So I'll take you down a little bit of what if, a bit of sort of fantasy here. So please listen to what I say. This is not my plan. It's not anybody else's plan, but this is just a topic for discussion, and tell me what you think of it when you've listened to the whole thing. We can't be done with the old. So what you're saying is, one fan on Twitter ran a poll asking if it would result in ENIC ending their involvement with Spurs, would fans be able to stomach the notion of relegation to the Championship? And the no's beat the yeses by a mere 10%. There's a few factors to consider in this hypothetical scenario. Relegation would reprice THFC as a doer-upper. Very posh one, but nevertheless an extremely neglected one. The money would fall, the valuation money would fall overnight and could well trigger a sale, unless ENIC fancied to stand around pontificating for however long it took for them to repair the train wreck. It could also potentially, and I think potentially is underestimating the point, trigger a mass exodus of players and effect a reset of the entire operation. Now, the fantasy warning here is that new owners wouldn't guarantee an improvement on ENIC. Business is business. There are lots of very not unnice people in business, and we could just get another ENIC. So that's the first thing. But this would put Spurs out of the spotlight for could put Spurs out of the spotlight for many seasons, but it would end the fur coat and no knickers sham that we're living through day by day. Whilst the humiliation would be difficult for some to digest, the venue revenues could then be more transparently, and this is could because it will be all dependent on who legitimately owned the business. We're not talking about people with bed sheets storming the boardroom here. The venue revenues could be more transparently poured into debt management and reinforcing the squad directly, opposed to filling our books with the likes of Jack Clark, Ryan Sessegnon and Tanguy Ndombele, which is nothing personal to them, but just as examples of money that's been spent on stuff that hasn't actually achieved very much. But what is important here is that this suggestion, and there was a lot of reaction to this, much of it very negative. I have to say, people go, you can't be a proper Spurs fan if you're even countenancing it, if you're thinking about it. But the reality is that most people, I think that's fair, most people have had enough. Personally, I'd find the idea of standing on the curb with a bed sheet which will achieve less than nothing, absolutely less than nothing, far more embarrassing than rebooting the club. And there's also a synergy here as well, in the respect that I'm seeing an increasing frequency in the comments section of everywhere. People are saying, well, I've given up my season ticket, I'm not doing this, I'm going to watch Brentford, I'm going to watch Orient, I'm going to watch my local team. Because suddenly the money scales right back. These have been tough times for many of us during the whole COVID thing, because we I don't need to spell it out. And instead of following Spurs like you did, you still keep them in your heart, but you don't have them in your checkbook anymore. And this business of, if Spurs did go out of the picture and went into the Championship for however long, because like I said, this is just a theoretical thing, it's all hypothetical, there's no we'd be back up in one season, back up in three, who knows, but it would move Tottenham, it would realign Tottenham as a brand, as a product. You'd get all the cachet with being able to put on the boxing fights and putting on Guns N' Roses and Shirley Bassey. It's probably dead, I don't know. But whatever you wanted to do. But you wouldn't have the misery of the way that the football club was just basically being run as a side issue. That gave no joy to anybody. Because let's be frank, it's not given anybody any joy for a long time. So, I mean, if you just think about it, I mean, and like I said at the preface, my comments on this, I'm not trying to sell you the idea of relegation. But what I am saying, and it's not up for debate, is that our form at the moment, and there's a long way to go, That's relegation form. There's no two ways about it. We are waiting for something seismically magical and different to happen. And it doesn't look obvious. It doesn't look like it's about to happen. So if the worst case scenario, and I use that in inverted commas, was that we went down and Enix said, right, okay, this hasn't worked. We've made a nice lot of cream off of this for a number of years, but the cow is dead now, effectively. This is a rebuild that's going to put another, I don't know, decade on the clock. I think they'd be more inclined just to sell and cut their losses and get going. And anybody who says, oh, yeah, well, I'd like you to prove they've been taking money out of the club. They've been on a beano for 20 years. I mean, the amount of salary and just, come on, you know, this line that the Enoch, the Levy, the Cullen, all of these creatures, that they're fans, you know, they're not foreign aid workers. It's not Amnesty International. They've been hauling huge amounts of money out of this. Bonuses, you name it. Stock, I'm talking about shares, I'm not talking about grabbing piles of T-shirts here. So this brings us back round to the question, is that supporters, before start holding up bed sheets, threatening people, acting like chimpanzees that have lost their mind, maybe just take a moment, a couple of, you know, and just ask themselves, what exactly are you supporting? And without attacking anybody in particular, but this bellowing that I hear online by some of Tottenham till I die, these days it sounds a bit hollow. I'm not questioning your integrity as a fan. I'm just saying to you that things have moved on a while. And I'm Tottenham till I die. So I'm thinking of the football club, and I'm thinking of Harry Winks passing sideways. I'm thinking of Dele Alli playing every bloody game, even though he's going backwards and he's not contributing everything. And he cheated a penalty recently, and he would have been good if he let Dane Scarlett take the spot kick. I'm thinking of all the negative nonsense and all the mumbo jumbo, and I'm thinking, what? How does that? I mean, shouting from the top of your lungs as you go up the high road, I'm Tottenham till I die, and you're going up, you're going to see, you know, when you get in there, you're going to see Steve Perryman. You're going to see, I'm almost in tears. Steve Perryman, Glenn Hoddle. Yeah, I'll be Tottenham till I die. But we've got these overpaid fairies, and people are just running it like a long firm. Just Daniel getting it. I mean, playing in the Champions League was the big thing that we were offering. You know, it's the only place in London to watch European football or whatever. The boards they put up, which the trading standards had to make them take down. And now there's 25,000 people watching Spurs play in the third tier of European football. It's just substandard product, substandard management. So if you're shouting Tottenham till I die, who are you trying to convince? Who are you trying to convince? I think you're trying to convince yourselves, because I think you look at what your surroundings are and you just don't buy it. You've got a stadium which you have a man of the stature, the dimensions of Jimmy Greaves die, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there because it's a multi-purpose venue. It's a multi-function entertainment suite. You know, they've got NFL stuff up on the walls, but it's all done with light shows. So the whole thing is, like I said to you, and I think there's a massive problem. I repeat myself, I don't care, but a massive problem in relation to the stadium sponsorship. The thing is so chameleon-like that I don't think any potential sponsor sees the clarity of the message, the clarity of the offer, because it can just be taken over in a heartbeat. And if I can remain convinced, if the money was right and they did a deal, they'd take that replica cockerel thing off the roof. And that just about sums it up. You can't have a Jimmy Greaves thing outside. Greatest player, arguably, that the club ever saw. There's no Bill Nicholson element to it. All of these things that were, if you like, the founding fathers of our modern game, they can't be represented in any kind of tactile way, anything that's tangible. And the thing on the roof is a reproduction. It's just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. Played Villa. I went through. I'm not losing heart in this or the whole operation, but I went through the team thing. I think the team kind of picks itself. I think Dele Alli will start. I'm curious to know if after one game against some Slovenian farmers or whatever they are, and there's no two ways about it, we have to speak frankly. I'm sorry if you're Slovenian and you're offended by that racial pejorative slur or whatever. But, Lo Celso has a good game against them, and suddenly we're going to build a team around him. I like the guy, but I don't believe his heart is particularly in it. And the same with Romero, I have to say. And I'm basing that upon not my feelings, but upon action and upon demonstrable acts that these guys have stuck upon us. So anyway, I might do a preview of the game later today, but I don't think I will, because I don't think there's much I can tell you. A plausible 11 is pretty pickable. I think obviously Kane and Sonny will start. But I tell you now, I don't think Aston Villa are in the form of their lives, but I think they will look at us like everybody is looking at us at the moment and just wondering, will they be able to do a job on us? Good luck. Keep it Tottenham.